Hi, everybody. Hi, Paul. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here, Terry. Great to see you.
Thanks. Good to see you too. Um, my name is Terry, holding your space. And I just want to, say hi to a few people. Hi, Annie Bear. Hi, Marianne, Scorpio Mama. Nice to see you. And I think Hershey's here, and Richie and Collie Hiller. So nice to see everybody today. This is Paul Rudy that we have the honor to be with today.
Hi, everybody.
And I met Paul through a mutual friend. He has an amazing place in Prairie, Kansas, and it's a farm called Harmony Farm. And Paul is a healer, a composer, a world renowned composer, and also a professor of music. There's so many things, Paul. I'm going to forget a few of them here.
Don't worry about it.
And it's amazing because you've been an academic for years and traveled all over the world performing, and now you've got this beautiful farm. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of my nest. As you said, I traveled a lot when I was younger and moved out here about 11 years ago. And since then, I haven't traveled much. I've been kind of building a nest out here and on the verge of traveling more now that the nest is sort of my home base is established and I have this place to come back to. It's 70 acres of prairie and forest, about equally half and half, and it's open to the public to come walk the spaces. Soon I'm going to probably be holding some more events out here. And I think we'll talk more about that as we go on. But it's on the web if you want to check it out, and we'll probably give you all that information as this goes on. So happy to talk about it.
Yay. Yeah, so it's just amazing. That's how I met you, and I was so lucky that you were there that day. I had gone out with a friend, and we were walking your land, and luckily I'd taken my a few things, a few little toys with me, a pendulum and whatnot. And there are just so many ley lines and vortices all around the land. It's just amazing. It's magic.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. And when I first moved here, I had a guy who stayed here for a while, and he was a dowser and identified some ley lines. Honestly, I don't feel or experience them, and I've never had any luck dowsing. So until you brought that up, it's been like 10 years since I'd really even thought about ley lines much. I mean, I know they're here. I know they're active, and I know they're doing stuff. It's just not one of the modalities that I connect with. So I'm really curious at some point to, walk the land again with you and just like experience what or hear about what you're experiencing, and where things are. Some of them I might be able to guess just because of other things going on there. But yeah, I'm really curious about that.
I was amazed because you have set up a lot of your. The land is incredible. Number one, everybody, and the way that you've set it up, and there's a labyrinth, and there's areas for meditation, and areas that align with your chakras, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure I would say it quite that way.
Okay.
Well, sure. So the thing with the land is, I I play with a lot of things out here. I play with a lawnmower, so that's how I made the sacred space that you're talking about up above. I call it the Dragonfly Labyrinth Temple. It's you can see it on Google Earth if you know where to look. And I play with. I just like to make things, and so I have a friend who has beautiful landscaping, and at her place I saw these painted orbs, and I'm like, wow, what are those? How'd you make those? And it's like, well, they're bowling balls. So I have this path up through the woods to get to the temple up above, and I just thought why don't I get one for each chakra color and just put them along that path? And so when you say they're aligned with the chakras, I'm like, well, yeah, sure, because they go up and they're equally spaced, or maybe, maybe the land aligns with your chakras when you come there, right? I think that what I've noticed that happens out here is people sort of get what they need when they come here. Need, want. I'm not sure which is the right word there, but I've really tried to work hard out here to um, keep my energy out of the equation, so that when you go out into the woods and on the prairie, what you're experiencing is yourself. Like, yourself is being reflected back to you. Your stuff is being presented to you if you want to work with it, and it's not my stuff that you're experiencing out there. So to me, the orbs are just like these fun things. I painted some bowling balls and put them up on sticks, so that, and honestly, it's kind of an observation thing. They're not all super obvious. I've had people walk through there that walk through there with people, and some people don't even notice them, and some of them are right by the path. So it's everything that's out there is accessible, but that doesn't mean everybody's going to experience it, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so I have a moon temple that sort of mysteriously, well, I say mysteriously materialized, but I built it. But it wasn't something I was planning on building. And this is maybe a good story to sort of share my relationship with the land, since we haven't showed anybody pictures of anything. I was sitting around the fire in my sun temple, which is by the house. It's a 42 standing stone circle by the house with a fire pit.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It was full moon in September of 2018, I think. And I just looked up at the full moon. I was like, "Hey, baby, is there anything you want?" And it's just like, well, now that you ask, yes, actually there is. And actually, that wasn't the moon temple. That was the spider web. When I added the spider web to the dragonfly temple up top. So I get those. I ask questions like, is there anything needed? What's is there anything you'd like me to do? And I get sometimes really specific information about what needs to happen. In the moon temple, I had a big meditation stone up there. Basically, it was as far as I could drag it. And so I would go up there and lay on it in full moon and watch the moon. And I don't know what motivated, but I just built a temple around it. So I built this, there's like 17 stumps. They're alternating masculine and feminine. So, one is forked and then two are straight. One is forked, two are straight. And then I put stones around that, like a masculine sort of holding space energy. And then I went to move the big stone that was in there. I don't know if it wasn't centered or what, and the stone broke. And I was like, well, that was interesting. So I had to find another stone. And right now there's a big heart stone in it. If we get a chance to look at show people the website, we can see pictures of all of these things. So I play with the land.
What does it sound like when you're talking to the land? Like, we talk about the different clairs, clairsentient, claircognizant. Are you hearing them? Are you knowing it? Are you seeing it?
Yeah, I kind of, I'm oddly a visual person, even though I'm a composer. All my music, comes with visions or comes out of visions. But I like to call it universal communication. I think it's how animals communicate. So it's an image, it's a sound, it's a form. Sometimes it's instructions. It's a complete communication that gives us all the information that we need to understand something, right? So language by itself is incomplete.
Mhm.
Vision by itself is incomplete. Sound by itself is incomplete. But when you add all of these things together and can communicate with all of those modalities at once, that's kind of like universal communication. So sometimes it's just an understanding that maybe that's the best label to put on it.
Yeah, I get that. Annie Bear asks, "Is it like your body is a key to this living library?"
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to think about it. Um, like we are living libraries, you know. I mean, in animal medicine, like if you have the Carson and Sam's deck, you know, the whale medicine is that in there is called the living library. But I think everything on this planet is a living library, right? A stone is a living library.
Yeah.
We are living libraries. We've got this whole DNA code in us that has all of our ancestry in it. It has all of the memories, all of the experiences. Now, whether or not we can easily access those to when we need it is another story. That takes a lot of practice. But yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. We are all living libraries, and even things that we think aren't living are living libraries. Another story, if I may, and I can tell
Neat.
a lot of stories, so stop me anytime.
No, that's awesome. I love it.
Um, there's this place in New Mexico called Star Dreaming. If you've never been there, I recommend you go. It's south of Santa
Mm.
Fe. This guy's building like 13 stone circles and medicine wheels and labyrinths. I mean, it's like this amazing thing out in the middle of the desert. So I went there with a friend, and he was actually taking large boulders and crushing them up by hand to make the gravel for some of the paths in the labyrinth. And he's like, "Yeah, the stones right now, you know, these are millions and millions of years old, and they have information inside them right now that's important for us to know. That's important to be out in the world now." And man, in my mind, in my instruction center, and there are many names for that, which we can talk about later, but there was a stone here at my place. Every time I went to gather stones for my sun temple by the house, this stone was like, "Hey, can I come? I want to be part of this." And I'm like, "Oh, you're just not the right shape. You're not the right size." I couldn't find a place to fit that beautiful little stone that wanted to be part of it. Well, it wasn't so little. It was about 2 feet by 2 feet and maybe 14 inches thick and solid granite.
Wow.
Well, when he said that in New Mexico, that stone was like in my brain going, "Oh, pick me, pick me." So I was like, "Oh, that's what you've been waiting for." So I came back in the middle of August and took a sledgehammer to that stone and I broke it up. Um, I think he's breaking up different stone than I was breaking up because I had about 130 hits before I even chipped anything off of it.
Wow.
And it took a lot of work, but towards the end this piece broke off and there was a little crystal in it. It's up in the labyrinth. I put it up where I can show it to people. There was literally like a little computer chip in that stone.
Oh
And
my
so,
gosh.
wow, yeah, there is information stored in these things. And I think about that a lot. Like, is part of our transformation right now because of all the gravel that's being crushed up to make dirt roads in the country, right? Like all this information, when these
Oh, wow.
stones are crushed up,
Yeah.
what information is being released at this time by those stone crushers? And all of a sudden something that went from like, why are we destroying these stones became like, no, this is like composting the stones, right? It's repurposing the stones and it's letting out whatever's in them that is time to come out right now. And I'm like, wow, that's like, who knows how that's changing and what's changing because of that. And these are like, I love playing these kind of thought experiments, right? Like, what if, the Stones really do want to share their information with us, but they can't break themselves, right? So
Right.
we have to help in that process. And all of a sudden, it's this beautiful gift that they're giving us that we have absolutely no clue, like what it's doing, how it's transforming things, what wisdom we're gaining from that, and how it's changing our lives, our atmosphere, our energy, everything. So
Sure.
yeah, there's a picture somewhere on my website of that little computer chip. I call it a computer chip, because crystals can store frequencies, and so I think of them as um, little computer chips. And yeah, that was a really beautiful moment. Like, oh, that's why I broke open that stone. Like that little library was like, I'm free, I'm free.
I love that. Oh, Annie Verse says stories set free. That is a lot of energy. We got
Yeah.
to drink a lot of water,
Yes,
right?
for
Um,
sure, for
yeah.
sure.
So, and that's so interesting because we talk about how everybody's DNA, their energy DNA, not just their physical, but their spiritual DNA, like that little spark of divinity inside us is different. Everybody
Hmm.
has something unique. So, of
Yeah.
course, the rocks would too. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah, and the trees and the plants and the animals, and yeah, it's when I cut up a tree for firewood. I mean, I have pictures of this on my website too. Like every fork, when I cut like a crotch, we call them in trees, where a trunk or a branch forks. If you
Hmm.
cut that off kind of level, guess what you find in there, Terry? Almost every time,
What?
an owl face.
Really? I saw that
Almost.
on your website. You guys
I've
both,
seen it. I've seen it so many times. It's like the owls aren't living in the trees; they are the trees. Like what? It's crazy how many wild owls I've seen when I'm cutting up trees, and other lots of other bird medicine too. I have a grandmother bristlecone pine tree in Colorado that I visit regularly. She's about 25 or 2,600 years old, and
wow.
she dropped off a chunk. I call it a finger. It's about this big around, and there is so much bird medicine in that. There's an egret, there's owls, there's uh, uh, I think there's an eagle in it. So you start looking at the grain of wood, and you start seeing the creatures that cohabitate with it. It's like
Right? Yeah.
wild.
And Annie says, I think of rocks as mother bones, mother's
Yeah.
bones.
Yeah,
Mother.
and in fact, this place in Colorado where this bristlecone pine tree is, it's on the backside of Pikes Peak at about 11,000 feet. So she's got a trunk that's maybe 6 feet in diameter, and up there it freezes almost every night. So the growing season is really, really short, and so that's why I'm pretty sure she's that old. And I asked her once too, and she told me. Um, but there's stones around there, and there's these two stones, and one is like the cleaved head of a grandmother, right? Like, oh wow, you guys used to have wars too. I feel like I can see the stone characters that used to inhabit this earth, and they've long since gone, but their bones and skeletons are still there, as Annie Bear says. Yeah.
Teresa says, like the trees record their animal friends.
Yeah, like they really impact each other, right? Like the owl leaves some of itself in the tree, and the tree and the owl. If you've ever seen those pictures where owls camouflage themselves so that you can hardly see them, when they're standing in a tree. Well, maybe it's the tree that's camouflaging itself to the owl, right? Like,
Yeah, right?
or maybe it works both ways.
Well, it's interesting. I have a tree right outside my window, and she's my guardian,
Mm,
and I call her Auntie Tree. But yeah, when I need to, that's where I go, and I just lean against her, and it's like zoom, take off.
yeah.
So the energy from them, it's just amazing. I love that you've got a grandmother tree. So,
And right near there, actually, this was after the visit after my vision quest in Taos in 2010, which was really mind blowing. I mean, like literally and figuratively on every level. I was walking around up there and I saw this little tiny bristlecone pine tree that was just bleeding sap, and it was like, "Psst, hey, come here! I got something for you." So, and I don't say no when a tree's like beckoning me like that. So I went and I put my hands on it and my forehead on it and got incredibly sticky, but and closed my eyes. And that's when that tree, I call it Yoda tree, because it taught me how to how trees communicate, and it's through movement, right? So what I felt while I was holding that tree with my eyes closed, I felt my whole body like swaying like this, right? My body wasn't moving, but I felt that kind of energy moving in my body. And so I started doing that with lots of trees. I was at Esalen once on the California coast.
nice.
And yeah, I kept wanting to walk up to every tree and I'd hug it and I'd put my
Right?
forehead on it. And this one had this energy that was going like, and then it would veer over and then go up, and it would veer over and go up. I'm like, wow, that's a really weird energy. And I stepped back and looked at the tree, and that was actually the shape of the tree. Like halfway up, it must have got damaged when it was young, and it jogged over and then went up again. The huge what's the tree in Maui that takes up a whole city block?
Oh, in Lahaina.
In Lahaina, you know that
Yeah.
tree?
Oh, yeah, the banyan. Yeah, I've been
The
there many
banyan tree. So, when you walk up to that tree, you're like, oh, it's got horizontal branches. So those things it sends down to the ground are holding those branches up, right?
times. Hmm.
No, it's exactly the opposite. When I put my arms on that tree
Uh-huh.
was levitating. Like those things are holding that tree down to the earth. Like that tree would float away if those things weren't there. That
Oh
was
my
mind blowing. So
God.
every tree has its own, like communicates its own shape through movement that I feel in my body. And yeah, I've got a lot of tree stories, but um, I,
That's a whole show right there. You know?
yeah,
I agree. We do a lot of tree meditation. I love trees.
yeah, they're really special because they're so grounded. There's as much of them below the ground as above ground, but they're reaching for the stars. Like they're so fluid up above, and yet down below they're so solid. And it's kind of like the greatest metaphor for me, like living life. Like, how can I be more like a tree, completely tethered to the ground, but just continuously growing and moving up? And they're yeah. Anyway, they're amazing creatures.
They are. Annie Bear says, Tunk, Tunka Shan.
Tunkashila,
Oh,
Tunkashila.
yeah. Yeah.
I think that's Lakota for yeah.
Grandfather of stone, she says. And then
Okay.
um, Kali Healer, we get downloads from trees.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
amazing.
And I'm
Amazing.
sure everybody has their own unique way of communicating with and receiving communication from trees. I mean, that's kind of like there's no one way to do anything, right? That's why when people ask me, "Hey, I want to learn more about sound healing. What books do you recommend?" I'm like, none.
Yeah. So, how did that come about? I mean, okay, we're going to weave around here. I can tell right now. I'm just going to flow with it. So, how did that happen? Because you had this academic background. Were you always like kind of spiritual, what we call woo
Mm,
woo?
well, not the woo woo kind, but I can,
No.
there were certain points in my life when I started becoming more conscious of some of my abilities and awarenesses, and I could look back and see where they started. So, for example, I had night terrors. I was afraid of the dark for till I was 40 some years old, because when I was 7 or 8, my sister was watching a horror movie on TV, and I was playing behind the couch, and I heard the screams, and I was like, what is that? And I started watching the movie, and I tell you what, it scared the crap out of me. I went to bed completely tense that night. In fact, I went out of my body that night, and I didn't come back until I was, well, until 2014 and 2015, which is a whole nother story. But um, so all my life I'd been looking at this experience as it was this major trauma that I had to heal in my life, and I had done a lot of work around it. um, and I was talking to my brother once, who's a very wise person, and telling him about this whole saga, and he's like, well, how cool is it that at such a young age you understood the power of sound? And I was like, oh my God.
Whoa.
That was the experience when I really understood how powerful sound is. And that sent me down absolutely down the path, because shortly after that, and I can't remember exactly what age that was, but shortly after that, I would have started playing cornet in elementary school. I found jazz after that and went down that route. When I went to grad school, after quitting music, I did a bachelor's degree in jazz trumpet in the early 80s. And then I quit music altogether to be a mountain climber and carpenter. And when I went back to grad school, I got into the electronic music studio, and I could start sculpting sound with electronic tools. And that just lit a fire underneath my rear. But I didn't stop there either. I started recording sounds on all my travels. If you listen to my CDs that are out there in Spotify land or Apple Music, wherever, you'll hear lots of sounds that I've recorded all over the world that you can recognize, right? So
Mhm.
I didn't stop at music. Music was the entry point. And I think because of that early experience, because I knew there's more power in sound than what music is delivering us, right? And I'm not saying music doesn't have power; it has tremendous power. And there's also more potential in that. So music sort of became a subset of sound, right? When I started working with all sounds from the planet and even off planet, because NASA's entire library of probe sounds is available. So I've composed with sounds from outer space.
Oh
So
my
the
god.
sky's not the limit anymore. The moon's not the limit. Voyager is out beyond our galaxy now. So, right, we've got all this
Yeah.
material that's coming from off planet. Um, and then I was driving across Kansas to mid 2000s, maybe 2007, 2008, and I noticed I love Alison Krauss, so I was listening to an Alison Krauss CD on my car stereo. My fingertips were going zzz, 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 just buzzing a little bit, and I was like, I wonder what that is. And I started listening closer to the music, and I noticed that was the cymbal hits on the song I was listening to. And I'm like, wait. And I didn't have it loud. It wasn't even playing loud.
Sure.
And that's when I discovered sympathetic vibration, right? Like my fingers were sympathetically vibrating with those frequencies. And so sound expanded into vibration, right? So sound is a subset of vibration, and music is a
Yes.
subset of sound. Well, I kept exploring that, and that turned into a sound healing practice that I use on myself, and that I work with clients and groups. Um, and I just, because I love thinking, right? That's why I didn't stay a carpenter. I love that work, but it wasn't using my brain the way I knew my brain wanted to be used. I just love practicing thought experiments, and I just kept exploring and exploring and exploring, and I discovered that oscillation is what all of those things are just smaller parts of, right? Oscillation is the building block of the universe, one of the main building blocks of the universe. And if you look at our solar system, if you find the model that shows the sun moving through space and the planets moving around it as the sun moves through space, those are oscillations, right? I've seen pictures of it at a cellular level in a fruit fly larva, right? There's a point where there's this glow inside, and it starts to grow, and at one point it oscillates, and then it gets really big. And So oscillation is one of the building blocks, and so all of these other things to me are sort of more finite expressions of that building block of the universe.
Can you explain what oscillation is to us?
Yeah. So let's see. Yeah. Okay. Good point. I'm totally geeking out here a little bit.
No, I love it. It's
Let's
great.
see.
Love it.
Well, a circle is an oscillation, right? But if you move a circle through space over time, what you get is these wave patterns, right? Um, and I'm trying to think of a better example that everybody would know. So, like if you, uh, well, like a piston in an engine, right? It goes up, down, up, down, up,
Hmm.
down. That's an oscillation, right? An
Okay.
oscillation, when you listen to speakers in a stereo system, the speaker pushes out, it comes back, it pulls in. That's how it moves air, right? That is,
Hmm.
speakers are oscillating when you're playing sound through them. The spiral of a DNA is an oscillation. Yeah,
That's what Teresa
fans
said.
fans oscillate in a circular motion, right? But if you move that motion through time, you get these wave patterns, right?
Yeah,
You get
that's how I see the crown chakra too, or
mm,
vortex. It's always in movement.
hmm.
Okay, so that's the word for that. Thank you, everybody. Oh, yeah.
If you just Google it, Wikipedia has some great examples of really great visual oscillations, and it is everywhere. It's our medical doctors refer to our insulin release as oscillations because it's not just going all the time. It's like changing how much it's giving us, you know, a lot to little, and that's, they refer to that as an oscillation. The moon cycle, oh my God, NASA puts out every year a 4.5 minute video of the entire annual moon cycle, like a
Yeah.
visual representation. That is, you can see an oscillation move right across the face of the moon. I went searching for things and I found them everywhere in the top of skyscrapers, and then I'll stop.
No,
So
no, keep going, keep going. No, this is interesting, isn't it, everybody?
there's this famous building in Taipei, I think. It's a skyscraper, and what they did is put a gigantic weight in the top of it. So when the building moves this way, when the building oscillates this way in the wind, the weight counteracts that by oscillating the opposite direction, right? So the weight's going
Mhm.
like this, oscillating on the inside, literally swinging like a pendulum, and the building is going the opposite direction, and that's what keeps the building from falling over in the wind. It's
Wow,
crazy.
it is.
The Seattle Tacoma Narrows Bridge collapse in 1934 or 1936. They built this brand new suspension bridge. Well, they didn't calculate the way the wind was going to blow across it, and it starts to oscillate, and that
Oh,
oscillation amplifies because of the material, because of the physics of it, and the bridge collapsed. A beautiful example of oscillation in its destructive capacity, right? So there's destructive oscillation, there's constructive oscillation. Anyway, I feel like I'm like being a real dork now, but you know.
no, not at all. Teresa says, yes, patterns repeat throughout all of creation. We just need to notice them. Right, Teresa? Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's, to me, that's the fun, Teresa. It's like noticing things is what's the reason I decided to stay here in 2015, instead of leave the planet. It's like, I think there's some interesting stuff going on here that I haven't really explored yet, and I'd like to stay around and explore that. So I decided to stay.
You
And
mean
and yeah,
stay on the planet or stay in Kansas?
stay in the
Or what?
planet. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was on my way out. Just wasn't thrilled with life. Was just in like literal physical pain, top to bottom. I was, yeah, and I was working with a healer, and I've done active healing work since the mid 2000s. Like, I mean, I'm not a modality tourist, but I've experienced a lot of modalities. Every now and then, at the right time, the right person comes along with the right modality that has exactly what I need, and
Yeah.
that's how I explore modalities. Um, but yeah, this was a bioenergy session, and we were working around my Roman past life from 2,000 years ago, which is my biggest personal task on this in this lifetime, is to overcome what was set up there, which I've been sort of living with for a couple thousand years now. And after we had processed all that, we're just walking out of the room, and the person I was working with said, "Oh, by the way, your guides want you to know if you choose to stay, you'll have lots of help." It was like, that was a true WTF moment right there. I was like, because we
Awesome.
hadn't, she didn't know how I was feeling. We were talking about this other stuff, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of the big issue for me right now. It's time for me to either engage in life and choose to stay here, because it became clear that, I was on, I, by not making a choice to stay, I was making a choice to leave. And um, not making a choice is making a choice. And so
Sure.
I thought about it for about a week, actually. It wasn't an immediate, oh yeah, I want to stay, I want to live. No, it wasn't that at all. It was like, do I, what? And if you go to my website, look at my photos, you'll see the photos that I credit with saving my life, because I went out on Halloween night of 2014 and walked the land, and I was really interested in interacting with orbs, right? I've been to
Mhm.
an orb conference. I've looked into them a lot. I think there's a lot of ways we can describe them and uh, explain them, whatever. But I was like, hey, can I take some of your photographs, And I got some amazing photographs. I got a photograph of my breath, right? It was like, at that point, after 2012, I was so homesick for the stars. I just wanted to go home to the stars.
Right? Yeah.
That
Often we
night,
don't feel like we belong here. Yeah.
yeah, right. Especially if we're gifted and we have lots of weird abilities and stuff. And that night, it's like the stars came down into my breath, presented themselves in this photograph. It's called Architecture of a Single Breath. And they're like, dude, really? There's a universe in every breath. And here's the evidence. Right here it is. We're just going to show it to you. So I thought a lot about those photographs a month later when I was laying in bed, like, do I want to stay here or am I done with this? And those photographs reconnected me with the mystery of life and the mystery of this place. And without that, well, that's the coolest thing about being on this planet to me, is the mystery. I talk like I know a lot of stuff, right? But I don't, And to me, the most interesting thing is like the mystery of it all, like
Curiosity.
curiosity. Yes.
Yeah. I
Like,
love curiosity.
when I'm not curious, I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to be here. Right. And yeah, so always, and that comes back to one of the comments earlier about just noticing things, right? I guess it was Teresa that said, we just need to notice things. Yeah. And all that
Yeah.
is looking around and listening deeply. And so, when you introduced me, you said, well, there's lots of stuff. You have lots of stuff. And I'm like, well, yeah. But when I tried to do a new website in 2016 or 2017, well, I was going to hire two website designers, not at the same time, but they both are like, we can't do this. Like there's, so I decided to design my own website. It was a great experience because I was like, what is it that ties all these things together? The land art, the photography, the sound healing, the composition, the deep, the all the interaction with the earth, and I realized it was just listening. It's all about listening, you know. It's listening with my ears sometimes, other times is listening with my emotions, and then there's times is listening with my feet. Like you do it when you douse, right? I don't know how that comes to you, but that's an act of listening in a non sort of aural way, right? Like listening
Yeah.
with my body, right?
Hmm. Energy. Yeah. Yeah. Because all energy has a vibration and vibration has a sound, right? And
Yes, in on Earth, right? Here's the rub. Here's what's cool about the Earth. So there is no sound in outer space. Why? Because sound requires matter to propagate.
oh,
There is no sound without matter. Think about that. We're matter. We're made of stuff, right? Which means every sound that comes at you, your body's interacting with. That's why sound healing is so powerful, right? Your
yeah.
body is literally feeling and listening to that sound. Your skin is, your organs are, your eyeballs are, your my beard hair is. So so there is no sound without the interaction of matter, right? And it's oscillations that are interacting with our physiology. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of people don't like it when I say this, but we're the energy bottom feeders of the universe because we exist at the bottom end of the frequency spectrum. Like the we are literally occupying the lowest end of the frequency spectrum. Physical matter vibrates really slowly. Like if you think about the frequency of us walking,
Right.
2 or 3 hertz, like that's boom, 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 boom. That's a rhythm. That's not a note, right? That's a low frequency.
Yeah. Yeah. And so yeah, so when we look at that and that linear way that we look at time as well,
Mm.
whether while it really oscillates, doesn't it? It's a circular or cyclical thing going on, probably all at the same time, since there is no time.
Yeah, maybe patterns is a better word than time. Ooh, I just made that up, by the way.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, like patterns exist, right? Like, um, yeah, cool.
I
I
love
like.
that.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from, but it's. I'm going to think about it a
That's a
lot.
download right there. That's
Mm.
awesome. Yeah. So uh, and then what else I want to? Oh, what about dreams? So I know I'm going from one thing to another, but it just seems like your land is so abundant,
Mm,
and for energy and senses and feelings. So
mm.
so do you dream on the land? Like, did you dream this? Your land? How does that look?
Did I dream the land, or did I dream my relationship with the land, or did I dream myself here to the land? There's a lot of potential questions there.
Right? Yeah. Go with it. Take your pick there, Paul.
Okay. Well, the funny thing about this is I was living in Rome at the time. I had a Rome Prize fellowship, so I was living at the American Academy. I mean, that was a dream. Talk about a dream. I mean, I was getting
Wow.
paid to live in Rome and compose, you know, and fed gourmet food. It was an amazing experience. About halfway through in March, it's like, oh, I'm halfway done. I'm gonna go home to Kansas City. I had tried to sell my house before I went to Rome in 2010, but it was the housing crash, and I just didn't.
Yeah.
And so I started looking online from my studio in Rome. Incidentally, my studio sat on the hill where Galileo did his telescope demonstration in 1611.
Oh my goodness. That
So
was
I composed a piece on my SoundCloud site called "At Rome Around Jovan Moons" for the commemoration of that 400th anniversary in March of the same month, March of 2011. Mind blowing experience to be sitting on that spot where he demonstrated that he called it an optical instrument. It wasn't called a telescope until somebody that night called it a telescope. That word was invented right there. And so I started looking online, and this place was the first place I found. And if I think I still have the real estate listing. There was one picture. It was from the lean-to looking up at this house.
Wow.
And I just kept going back to that picture. I'm like, I don't know. There's something about that looks really interesting to me. And so and I emailed the realtor. This was in March, and I after I bought the place, I kind of went back and looked at that exchange, and I realized she responded to me on the spring equinox of 2011. It was like, I don't know what it was that year, March 20th or March 21st. That's when I got a reply from her. And when I came back in August, it was still available, so I came out 4 weeks in a row, and walked the place. The first time I came out on the prairie up above where I call it upstairs, where the labyrinth dragonfly temple is, I saw, like, I had these visions of teepees. It's like, oh, I've lived here before. I know I've been to this place before. Something really felt like home about it. And let's see, what's important about that? Every time I hit a roadblock in my mind, I'm like, okay, why am I telling this? What's important about it?
I had a similar experience, Paul, when I
Uh-huh.
was there, and I could feel the teepees and the people, the ancestors of the land, but I could also feel the galactic energy there at the same time.
Yeah. Oh my God. So many stories. Um,
You got time?
when I first moved here, there were 3 horses on the property. The previous owners lived in the basement while I sort of gradually moved in upstairs. They weren't ready to move out. I wasn't ready to move in and pay 2 mortgage payments by myself. So they had 3 horses. After they left the horses here for a while, and I took my tent up there to sleep one night. I, 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 I don't know if it's fair to say or not, but one of the horses was weird. I kind of thought of it as an autistic horse because it would just do weird things that, like, I'd never seen horses do before. And I set up my tent. I took some photographs, kind of in the dark with the flash. That's because that's how I get orb photographs. And
Mhm.
and that horse came and just stood right over my tent. It was a little pup tent, this gigantic horse is just standing above me. I'm like, what are you doing? So I got out and I scared it off. I shooed it away. It came back 3 times. At
Mm.
that point, I was so frustrated with it. I just balled up my tent and came in the house at 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, the next morning I looked at the photographs and just filled with orbs. So, and I've since had a person that comes out fairly regularly to Vision Quest who said, there's a whole intergalactic city in that backwoods there. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And so that horse was like, dude, what are you doing sleeping here, you idiot? You shouldn't be sleeping here. Come on, man. This is crazy. Do you know the aircraft that are going in and out of here? Geez, I can't believe you're dumb enough to do that. And so the horse, I think, was actually trying to protect me. Oh man, I'm so stupid sometimes. And
No.
both the horse and the land just laugh, and that's why I can say that because, when I first bought my tractor, I love sycamore trees and I don't have a lot of them here. When I first bought my tractor, I got it wrapped around a sycamore tree. Couldn't go forward, couldn't go backwards. It was a beautiful tree about this big. I had to cut it down to get the tractor free. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I had my tail between my legs and I heard the land laugh. It's like, yeah, we know it's a steep learning curve for you here. Don't worry about it. It was just like, oh, jeez.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
But I moved some of the trunk of that up to, and I set them as sort of posts in the sun temple. The sun temple by the house while I was still putting stones in there. And so I honored it in my own way. And yeah.
That's amazing.
There's nothing that's irreparable, like that's what I've learned here. There's nothing that's irreparable, um, that we can't make peace with, that we can't reconcile, right? So that's kind of the way I live here. It's like, and it's like I'm going to make mistakes. Well, so I kind of decided when I moved here that I was going to try to do everything in a ceremonial way. So, oh, this is funny now. Um, I I I bought a chainsaw, and I think it was spring of 2013. First time I had the chainsaw out, and I was just out there whacking down little cedar trees. I don't. For those of you who don't live in Kansas, if you don't control the cedar trees, they will take over and they will ruin a landscape. So, I was out there. Well, I hit my knee with the chainsaw right on the kneecap, my left knee. It
Oh,
was that thing where I saw my pants go poof, and I felt it through my bones. It was like zzz. I was like, oh, that's not right. So I walked into the house. I'm like, the whole time I'm walking in, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have to do a little Reiki on this. And I took my pants off, and I'm like, yeah, I think this needs a little more than Reiki. Well, so I went to the emergency room, and I was they asked me, of course, when was the last time you had a tetanus shot? And I said, honestly, I don't know. I doubt whether it's been within the last 3 years. And that little spirit voice inside said, sorry, man, we had to get you in here somehow. So I was like, oh, all right. So I wasn't doing things the way I said I wanted to do things. I didn't say a prayer before I cut all those little trees down. And cedar is like sacred wood, right? It's an invasive species here, but I still consider it sacred wood, And so I
right.
wasn't doing things the way I said I wanted to. I wasn't being careful. I wasn't even present. I wasn't even in my body, And so I learned a lot of lessons from that. And I got a tetanus shot, which I'm pretty sure I needed. So,
I love it. That's amazing. Well, do we want to watch some of the video now that we've got?
oh yeah, whatever you want to do. This is your
Oh,
show.
oh, whenever you want to. But I want you guys to
I
see
mean,
the land
yeah, I
since
guess are you talking about the infomercial that I made about the land?
I think that's what it is.
Okay.
There's music playing. It's a
Yeah.
YouTube. Um,
I rewrote the Lord's Prayer kind of as inspiration for this, and it's meant to just sort of give an overview of the land. So yeah, if you want to show that, that'd be great.
it's
It'll
it's
give
really
people
beautiful.
it'll give people a little idea of all these spaces I'm talking about, which are, I don't know, maybe more interesting in your imagination right now than they will be once you see them. That's always the danger, right?
Everybody's saying they want to see it. They'd love to see it.
Let's do it.
We'll go ahead and do that
Do I
now.
need to mute myself while we're doing that?
Pardon me?
Do I need to mute myself while we're doing that?
No, we can. I think we can talk at the same
Oh,
time.
okay. All right.
Yeah, I think we're good. Um, okay, there we go. Let me know if the sound's not good, everybody. I haven't done this way. It's hard to read, isn't it?
That's the moon temple I was talking about earlier.
Is that the horse?
Yeah, that's her.
Were those the orbs? Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
that's the photograph of my breath.
Oh, man. And those are just orbs in the night sky. amazing.
That's a little overview of, it's kind of a walk down memory lane. Some things have come and gone. The spider web's not there anymore. That served a temporary purpose from 2019 to 2021. So it looks a little different up there now, but everything else is still there. So
Yeah. There's so much energy there, Paul. And somebody was asking if you did retreats.
yeah, so right now I'm building a studio space. It's a garage with 1,000 square foot studio space up above where I'm going to be able to do some larger group things. Um, and I think what I can do at that point, I might move to the basement, which means I could house 10 people upstairs and do like small retreats with people staying here. Um, or bigger retreats with people staying in town. I'm about 20 minutes out of Lawrence, Kansas, and there are nice places to stay there.
Yeah,
I
great too.
haven't quite wrapped my head around that yet, but thanks for all your comments. I'm sort of watching. I'm not able to respond to any of you, or I would be, but thanks for all your comments.
Yeah, and there's so much energy out there if you guys can get there. I know Paul's going to have, you've got something coming up on the 7th, right? May
Yeah,
7th.
so there's a young lady who's out here and really communing with the fairy circle. The fairy circle was the one that had the spiral, and then it was divided into fours. It's kind of shape shifted. She's working with beautiful energies down there, and she does a lot of grief work and is doing a grief workshop on the 7th. I'm going to start that with a sound healing session in my sound healing room, and then she's going to take everybody out for what she's calling a two fires ceremony. I don't know the details of that. I know there's a it's going to be a lot of work around grief, communal grief, and individual grief, and I'm pretty excited about that. And that's kind of one thing I've always envisioned out here is other people coming and doing their thing here, um, and that seems to you, I've got a lot of things going, and I don't really promote any of them. So whatever lands here, I kind of feel like um, is is what's right for the time and place and moment. And I learned my human design last summer, and it's been rocking my world to align with my human design, and things are working so much better now that I understand like who I am and how and my best strategy for moving in this world. And so I think that's why some of these things are starting to happen now. I mean, I am looking for funding to finish the studio. I just have to put this out here because I got it a little over half done, and I'm in a fundraising stage right now. So if you know any philanthropists or people that want to support interesting places like this for healing work, feel free to put them in contact with me. And yes, Cali Healer, surrendering and allowing. That's what I'm doing around this whole thing. Like my agreement with the land when I moved here. I don't know if you remember seeing the spiral in the woods, the spiral path in that video.
Mm-hmm.
That's the feminine medicine wheel in the woods. It's a place where two creeks come together, so it's kind of even anatomically correct. Um, and that's the first space I identified sort of as a special place. It is a portal. It's a one-way portal going out. So I've helped a lot of spirits move through there. Uh, I actually planted my staff there, and I know that sounds. I don't know how that sounds. I
No,
planted a
it's
staff there.
beautiful.
I cut a hedge tree from the east fence line that was kind of a hedge limb, and I dug a hole and I planted it there, and I started adorning it with things, and I just made a commitment to do whatever was needed here to the best of my ability. And my part of that agreement is I need the resources to make it happen. And I need, I need the time and space to do it. And it's been really great in this project to just launch myself in it a year ago. I don't budget. I just never done that. And I trust that things are going to show up when they're needed.
Yeah.
And I've had to work hard at that in the last 2 months. Like, oh my God, I have to work more. I have to do more. It's like, no, 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 no. Just keep doing the things that excite me, that are needed, that the land needs, and saying yes to invitations and opportunities. And that's been a big change for me. So yes, Callie Healer, a lot of surrendering and allowing right now.
Amen. That's like the whole planet, right? I mean, if you're aware, that's what we're doing. Hi,
Yeah.
Luana. Well, I think that's beautiful, and knowing your own design. So I think that is just a beautiful uh, wording or paragraph or energy. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, I don't know if you know much about human design. It's astrology, basically. But I've always railed against my astrology. I'm like a Leo, but I'm not a typical Leo. I'm not very assertive. I don't chase after things. I don't chase after people in relationships. I wait. I've always waited. You know.
mhm.
Turns out, well, that's my human design. I'm an emotional projector. So my strategy in life is to wait for invitation. I'm like, well, crap. If I look back at my life, the best things have happened through invitation. Yes, I put my ideas out into the world, which is my work, right? I invent things. I put ideas out into the world. I put things out into the world, and through that creates invitation. This is a perfect example, Terry. I mean, I'm here because you invited me here after coming and experiencing what I put out into the world, right? That
Yes.
is that is my human design 101 right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was so thrilled to meet you, and that was just pure chance. You weren't really, we didn't think you were going to be there. I went there with a friend.
Really, you believe in chance?
No, but infinite possibilities I do believe in.
Yeah. I mean,
Synchronicity.
that was kind of a divine
Yeah.
appointment, or a design appointment. Yeah, maybe that too. I had people come out on Sunday, and I had totally somehow it didn't get on my calendar because a friend that's come out here quite a bit was wanting me to introduce me to somebody, and it didn't get on my calendar. But I was sitting in the inside, and it's like, man, I got to get outside and just do something. So I got my work clothes on, and just as I was ready to go out the door, she's like, "We're here," and I was like, "Oh snap! Yeah, okay, perfect." I didn't forget. I just momentarily didn't know.
Right? Yeah. Mm. Oh,
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, it's really nice. So if anybody wants a sound healing from Paul, they can contact you at your uh, website, right?
Yeah, you can book directly on my website. I finally committed to just carving out some times to be available for people. And if you don't see something there that works, just message me. I'm at the end of the semester right now, so things are crazy for another couple of weeks. Then I've got a little bit of space. So if you don't see something that works for you, just reach out, and I'm happy to, figure out a time that works. Um, it's funny. I've been going through this thing where I've been teaching at UMKC for 25 years now, and I kind of want to retire. And you know how we make agreements with ourselves. It's like, well, the universe wants me to go this way, wants me to go more into this sound healing guru work, whatever. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to commit to that. I put it on my schedule, and for 2 months now, nobody's signed up, right? All these times that I put on my calendar blow by with nobody signing up. And all of a sudden at school, all these interesting projects are coming my way that are kind of blowing my mind. And so I realize it's so easy to forget, like, who am I?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm not a sound healer. I'm not a shaman. I'm an artist who tries to just create the most interesting experiences for myself and share them with others that I can, you know. And I keep being reminded of that in this journey. Like, just create. In fact, after my dad died, um, I was in that weird space. I mean, I'm 60 years old and I just finally lost a parent, you know, like, how lucky is that? And he was almost 95. But still, it's like, well, I don't know how I feel about this. And I'm not going to worry about how I should feel about it. I was happy for him. He had an amazing life. We had a great relationship. I was a little sad, but I wasn't torn up by it. So I was down in the medicine wheel, in the feminine medicine wheel, laying in my hammock. And he just came to me in a vision or whatever. And he's like, son, just keep making stuff. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. That's all I needed to hear. Just keep making stuff, you know? And
Mm.
that's what life does, right? Life just keeps making stuff. Right now, there's an orgy happening in the woods, in case you haven't felt it. Go out there. Sometimes it's like, whoa, would you guys calm down a little bit? Like, everything is having sex, like everything is reproducing out there. I'm like, oh man, that's intense. I'm glad I don't live out there. You know, and and that's what life does. It just keeps making stuff, you know,
Yeah.
and that's, you know, I'm so excited because I'm inheriting my dad's woodworking tools. So part of the garage I'm building is going to be a wood shop. I'm going to actually have a space to make stuff with wood.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so excited about that. And so, yeah.
Well, and you're, as well as being a composer, are you a conductor? You?
Um,
How does that
I,
work?
I conducted one piece last fall by Raven Chacon, who's a kind of he's a concert composer, but it's kind of a little bit, I guess most people would call him experimental. So it wasn't like, I wasn't like reading a detailed musical score. It was kind of like a graphic score, and I was kind of just like um, you know,
Just traffic copying.
traffic copying the musicians. So no, I'm not a conductor. That's a unique art form, and those people are amazing
Yeah.
musicians. And I would never claim to be one.
Oh, well, yeah. So Paul has quite a few credentials that he's not letting on to. Aren't you? Are you? You're the head of the department
I'm
there.
the I'm the coordinator of music composition at the UMKC Conservatory. Yeah, so that means I do a lot of paperwork.
Yeah. Right. And you do photography.
Yeah, you know, I studied it in college a little bit, and I've always loved it. And then I went through, in my early spiritual journey, I'm like, oh, why do, you know, taking all these photographs takes me out of the moment and the experience. So I kind of threw my cameras away for a while. But there's something about photography that still really interests and excites me. And, you know, I want to be clear about those orb photos. Some of them are natural and some of them are not,
Oh,
right? Like,
I
so,
wouldn't know which one because they're all gorgeous.
well, so the one with all the colored orbs in it, right? I was like, oh, I wonder what happens if I take my shirt off in the labyrinth and shake it out and take a picture of it. So
Wow.
that's dust. It's actually dust from my shirt. It's probably like skin, like dead skin and stuff. So, but once I took a bunch of natural ones, you know, up on the prairie and stuff, I started experimenting with a squirt bottle. So some of those are a squirt bottle, and so that's my vibe, right? Like, I'm like, is it a spiritual thing? Are they aliens? Is it magic? Is it a CCD chip problem in the camera? I'm like, why can't it be all those things, right? Like, why do we have to say it's this, that, or the other?
Yeah.
Like, and I saw somebody ask, what was that? And I'm like, well, what did you see? Right. Like that's what I love about art and photography. It's not about what you think I'm giving you. It's about what you're receiving. It's about what you're experiencing. It's about what you see, right? Art is about you and what you receive from it. And in fact, what does that reflect back to yourself about you? I teach a class on that at UMKC, a gen ed class called the Artist in Society. It's a culture and diversity class. And it's like, what does looking at this piece of art tell you about yourself? I don't care what you think the artist was trying to do. That's not interesting, right? Leave that to the egghead academics. And I can say that because I'm one of those. Um, I'm interested in, what you think this is and what does that tell you about yourself? That's the great gift that art gives us. It puts a different kind of mirror in front of our face and says, how differently can you see the world?
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
How willing are you to see things differently? And boy, that's a great exercise for all of us, right?
Yeah. To go out in the world and smell and taste and just use our imagination. Your brain doesn't know otherwise, does it?
It doesn't.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And the brain is lying to us all the time. It's approximating. It's throwing away so much data that we're taking in that our brain just can't process. There's a lot of research on this that I've looked into, that our brains, I mean, we're using our own brain to study our own brain. Well, what are the chances that that's going to come out with anything valuable?
So what do you think about ascension? So and the new energy that's coming in, or do you feel like it's all continuous, or do you feel like it's accelerated?
um, well, so when you said the word ascension, that's a little bit of a trigger word for me. I'll just be honest. So what do you mean by ascension?
What do you think about um, okay, us moving into the divine feminine era,
Yeah,
out of patriarchy into the divine feminine, and a different density, a different energy on the
yeah,
planet
yeah,
of working together and helping each other and
yeah.
being more communal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with all of that. To me, that's not ascension. Um, that's evolution, right? And to me, evolution is not competition based. I just saw this the other day. It was a meme. It's like, oh, a decent meme. Evolution is not about competition. It's about adaptation, right? So if we want to survive as a human race, we have to adapt, right?
Right.
The methodologies of patriarchy and masculinity that we used for a couple thousand years do not serve us anymore. We know that. We can see the evidence of that everywhere. So we have to change, and we have to balance in harmony. So balance is stasis, right? If you're balanced, there's an aspect of not moving. If you're in harmony, there's an aspect of moving.
Yeah.
So we need to harmonize those two energy types so that we're making the best use of both of those traits, right? Each one brings a unique thing to the table that the other one can't. And that's the work I do out here. It's really balancing and harmonizing with the masculine with the feminine. I've had to do that personally. Um, the medicine wheel in the woods, the feminine medicine wheel, I'd get sick to my stomach every time I went there for about the first year. There was some weird shit going on there. And was it in me? Yes. Was it in the land? Yes. Was it, people would tell me various things. One person said they felt like there had been blood sacrifice there, which the Pawnee Indians practiced. Um, Women would tell me, "Oh my God, I couldn't be here if you weren't here, if you hadn't been doing this work." Like a lot of people felt some deep woundedness there, and so yeah, like I really ultimately wanted to create a safe space where the feminine could come and fully express itself, and explore itself and learn and grow into itself, so that it could stand next to and hand in hand with the divine masculine. So yeah, ascension. I didn't come here to ascend. I came here to be in a physical body, to feel this pain in my knee. I came here to experience. I can I'm like a big catfish in the bottom of the Mississippi River, right? I came here to experience the bottom because, um, the thing is, the lower the frequency,
Mhm.
the greater the amplitude of its projection, right?
Mm.
So it takes a lot more energy to project a bass note in an audio system than it does to project a high note, right? That's why when we fart, or when we have an orgasm, or when our stomach growls, the universe shakes, because these low frequencies come with a huge amplitude, and it changes it just reorders everything, right? So yeah, I didn't come here to be something other than human, right? I know I'm something other than human, but I came here to experience humanness, and what I could do, the most I could do with that. And I've already tried leaving my body. I lived that way for years. I mean, my memories up until 2015 are mostly me watching myself live life, so, and now I finally feel like I'm seeing through my eyes, I'm feeling through my body. And so for me personally, and again, I don't like making statements that apply to everybody, right? Everybody here came for a different reason, came for a different purpose. I love what, Eat, Pray, Love, Melissa Gilbert says
Oh, I
about
love her.
it.
Yeah.
If you don't have a mission, and if you don't know your mission, don't worry about it. Because if you have a mission, you probably know it, right? And if you don't, well, don't worry about it. If you spend your entire life just being curious, that's a worthy goal. That's a worthy reason to be here. And I'm like, oh my God, I love that so much, because I've always had a mission, right? So I don't go around preaching, find your mission, because for most people, they're like, well, screw you. I'm like, where am I supposed to find my mission? Right. So it's like, no, just be curious. Like, if you have a mission and you're gonna find it, probably you're gonna find it through curiosity, right? Like, oh, I wonder what that is over there, right? Um,
Right. And it's like, I mean, for me, curiosity is joy because I love finding new things and learning new things. And it's just so exciting, isn't it? The energy.
Absolutely. And that joy feeds more curiosity. It's like, that's like a feedback loop. That's an oscillation. That's a feedback loop that gives you more energy and gives you more interest and excitement. And yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Hi, Gigi. Hi, Teresa. Good to see you here. Michelle. So, Michelle says, your outlook is so invigorating. It's true. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
In 2001, when I got divorced, I was so unhappy. I hated myself. I would berate myself for dropping a pencil. I
Sure.
and so, 20 years ago, I looked in the mirror and I'm like, man, this guy that is presenting himself to the world, that's not who I am. And I recommend everybody try this. Just hear me out. Go find, I think every newborn baby is ugly. My 2-day old baby picture, I'm just like, oh my God, I look more like a toad than a human. But my 6-month old baby picture, I look at that guy and I'm like, that's who I am. That is the true me, before parents, family systems, society, media, before anything got to me. And that picture saved my life 20 plus years ago. I found that picture and I'm like, I want to be that guy again.
Right?
And I feel like I am, right? Like, um, yeah, when I get to talk about this stuff, like I'm watching myself on camera here, and I'm like, I don't talk like this, but I'm so excited about this that,
Oh,
and that's the 6 month old me, who is, I believe, the true me. And when I get fully back to that me in this human body, I'm done. I'm out. I'll see you next life, right? And I just, that guy is so beautiful to me, and I just strive to be him every day, more like him, because he's curious. He's like, I don't feel like I know much, but I feel like I experience everything, and I just kind of put myself in those shoes.
yeah, yeah, like wonder, right?
Yes.
Bliss, because I think we develop all these constructs. We learn all these wonderful constructs, and people teach us how we're supposed to feel and how we're supposed to show our feelings,
Right.
particularly, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember my dad, before he passed away, like 10 or 15 years before he passed, he was a little boy again. And he
Mm,
was bouncing through life, and he'd go and he'd talk to somebody at the airline or the cash register, anywhere. Everybody fell in love with him because he was
yeah.
just that little boy again.
Mm,
And I'm like, that's what I want too. I want that little
yeah.
girl. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not really looking forward to wearing diapers again, but hey, whatever it takes. I mean, that's part of being human.
Oh my God. I told my kids when they were growing up, I changed your diapers. You're going to change mine.
It's true. I I saw it for myself in the last week of my dad's life. I changed his diapers.
Yeah. Ditto.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this has been a joy. So thank you so much, Paul, and
You
everybody
bet.
here for being here.
You bet.
And somebody was asking earlier if you would come back every week, Paul. So
Well, I'm certainly happy to come back because, as you can see, I hope, as you can see, talking about this just lights me up. It just warms my heart, and I love telling stories, and I love just experiencing and sharing that with others. So it's been a real pleasure to be with you all, and I hope you'll all reach out, check out my stuff online, and the thing I started, if you don't mind a shameless plug, the thing I started in November was composing personalized sound meditations for people, and that's sort of a new musical path that's got me really excited. So if anybody wants to explore that, just let me know. There's information on my YouTube channel. Each of the musical mantras um, has a link to a questionnaire. And there is a bunch of somebody saying we want to hear them. They're all check out the musical mantras on my YouTube channel, and see what you get from them. And most of them I wrote one last week called "I am patient" because I needed that mantra. It's
I
like,
saw that. I loved that.
yeah, it's like, wow. And I look back and I'm like, I needed all of these. I wrote these for myself. Now, if they help you, that's awesome. That's A plus. That's even better. But so yeah. Anyway, thanks for checking it out, everybody. Thanks so much for an interesting conversation. And yeah, I'd love to come back anytime.
Awesome. That sounds great. Well, if you'll hang on for a minute, we'll say goodbye to everybody out there.
Thanks for
Farewell.
coming. Nice to
Um,
meet you all.
Hope to see you all tomorrow, and we will talk to you soon. So,